The pilot of Air Florida Flight 90 peered into the snowstorm as the plane taxied to the runway of Washington's National Airport. It was late January, and many of the passengers strapped into their seats and waiting for takeoff were looking forward to a midwinter vacation in the sun. But the weather in Washington was not cooperating, and neither was the airplane. The runway was slushy, the Boeing 737 was ice-laden, and the instrument panel warned of engine problems. 4 times, the co-pilot reported that the conditions were not right for takeoff, but the pilot ignored the warnings and decided instead to coax his airplane into the air. Seconds after takeoff, Flight 90 lost altitude, slammed into the 14th Street Bridge, crashed through the icy Potomac River, sank to the bottom, killing 74 people, including the pilot, the co-pilot, and 4 motorists who had been on the bridge. Newspapers and television reports showed dramatic pictures of a few struggling survivors being pulled from the icy waters by heroic rescuers. And investigators later concluded that 2 words could summarize the major reason for the crash of Flight 90. Those 2 words: human error. According to a government study, 70% of all air accidents and near accidents are caused by human error on the flight deck. The potential for disaster is high when there is miscommunication, non-cooperation, poor teamwork between personnel, or, as that fateful Air Florida Flight 90, an unwillingness to heed danger signals. Well, it was about this unwillingness, perhaps, to which the late Albert Schweitzer referred when he was asked by a London reporter, "Doctor, what's wrong with men today?" After a moment, the Nobel Prize recipient replied, "Men just don't think." Hello, my name is Ty Boyd. And I want to spend the next few moments talking, not about airplane tragedies, but about the potential for disaster or success that's within each of us. Locked within this potential are secrets that can either work for you to help you gain wealth or against you. What is the key to success? We live today in an age of unlimited opportunity. This is an era to which man has worked for and dreamed about for thousands of years. Now that it's here, we take for granted the very foundations of our society. In America, for example, everyone has an opportunity to be educated, to have basic freedoms, to choose an occupation or profession, to establish belief systems, and to rise above poverty. What happens on average? For every 100 men and women who enter the job market, the statistical breakdown between that time and the year when they reach 65 years of age can be predicted with a high degree of accuracy. Almost all of those 100 young people, when asked about their ambitions, will share their aspirations for the future. Almost all will tell you that they plan to be successful. You'll see their eagerness and courage as they look forward to life's adventure. But what will happen to those 100 young people? Well, by the time they're 65 years of age, 1 will be rich. 4 will be financially independent. 41 will either be working or managing financially on a pension plan. 54 will either be broke or living far below their minimum expectations. In other words, only 5 of those 100 men and women will have made the grade. Why will so many fail? What has happened to their dreams in the future, the hope for their plans? What will happen to make life's adventure so different from what the 95 intended? And what will happen to cause the 5 people to achieve success? Well, the answer, in many ways, for the disaster in human lives is the same as the reason for the Air Florida Flight 90. Human error. It's the seemingly little choices, the inadvertent bad judgments, and the lack of purpose that leads to failure in life. Human error. But there are ways, secrets, if you will, to overcome the potential for human error in life. I call them wealth secrets because though they are simple and available to everyone, they are also largely ignored by the 95%. The 5% know that success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal, a dream, if you will. It's the 5% who discover that a person who works toward a predetermined goal is already a success. They know that if he has no goal or if he is not working toward that ideal, he is already a failure. Let me give you that definition again. Success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile goal. Why aren't more people successful? Well, if they're not working toward a predetermined goal, they are destined to be human disasters, just as tragic as with the jet that crashed into the icy Potomac River. Success starts with a positive decision, then another positive choice, then another Success requires that a person be willing to stick with those decisions, even when the other 95% are marching to the beat of a different drummer. I've heard it said that the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, but conformity. Think of those 100 men and women again. They should have learned to read by the time they were 6 or 7. They should have learned to make a living by the time they were 25, and probably will have been supporting a family by their 30th birthday. And yet by the time they blow out those 65 candles of their birthday cake, 95% of those 100 will not be successful according to our definition. 95% will have conformed to society's norm. Only 5% will have made the difficult decisions that require courage, not conformity. Why? Well, the difference lies in the choices. A survey was made in which working people were asked this simple question: why do you work? Why do you work? 95% responded with various ideas, but they had no concrete idea. Well, I go to work because nearly everyone I know goes to work, was the sum total of 95% of the replies. Only 5% had a definite answer, a definitive answer for going to work. Only 5%, therefore, were successfully and progressively realizing a worthwhile goal or dream or ideal. Our original story of the 100 men and women and this survey of working people, by the way, was done by 2 different sets of researchers. But isn't it interesting that the percentages were identical? 95% were conforming failures. 5% were courageous successes. So let me ask you, where do you fit? More importantly, where do you want to fit? With the 95% or with the 5%? How to succeed? Let's go back to that definition of success. Who succeeds? Well, the only person who succeeds is the person who says, I'm going to become this, and then begins to work persistently toward that goal. Who is successful? A success can be anyone who decides what he wants and then does it. A success is anyone who is doing something worthwhile because he deliberately decided to do it. Surprisingly, sociologists tell us that only 5% are doing that. Again, is it more than coincidence that 5% are successful while the other 95%, according to the sociologists, are relegated to jobs that they don't like? How do you become part of that elite 5%? What are the wealth secrets? Well, like many other people, I look for those keys and secrets. I wanted to discover what would guarantee a person becoming successful. I noticed that people who discover the key ingredients of success usually continue to build success upon success. I also noticed that people who fail also tend to continue to fail. Hard work, as important as it was, didn't seem to be one of the greatest elements, for I saw many who spent their years working extremely hard yet never achieved anything in particular. What then are the true wealth secrets? Well, I want to share 7 special keys to unlocking what seems to be one of life's greatest mysteries. A, goals. You've heard that word before. First, people with goals succeed because they know where they are going. Think of 2 automobiles. The first has a family in it with plans to take a vacation, but they have no maps, no definite schedule, no idea where they're going. They just plan to take a vacation. They just start the engine and pop the transmission selector and drive. Well, how successful will this family's vacation be? Now, compare those odds with the family who has budgeted their trip, who knows exactly the tourist sites they want to visit, and has a time schedule to follow. Well, I think you'll agree with me that the first family has little chance for success. The odds are very high that the second family will enjoy a special vacation time together. Likewise, a human being cannot go any place without a destination, specific directions, and a time schedule. People with goals succeed in life. People without them fail. It's really not much of a big mystery, after all. If you want to be a success, and if you want to turn your dreams into realities, you must decide what you want, define it clearly and specifically, and write it down. Goal setting is not just wishful thinking or daydreaming, but what people in the field of human endeavor call burning desire. True goal setting allows you to see what you could become, and it helps you develop the attitude which says, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to do it. Goal setting gave birth to Charles Lindbergh's desire to be the first to cross the Atlantic in a single-engine plane. Goal setting drove the boy with the burned legs and poverty-ridden background to become Glenn Cunningham, one of history's greatest milers. Goal setting has been the reason Big Daddy Don Garlitz has overcome flaming crashes and seemingly impossible barriers to continue his reign as king of the drag racers, even though he is now over 50 years old. Goal setting is a common trait for business people like Lee Iacocca, head of Chrysler Corporation, and Sam Walton, founder of Walmart stores. If our burning desire is for an object, an accomplishment, or a skill that will benefit us, our family, or mankind, and harm no one, then it can become a reality. Sure, most people are afraid to set goals because they must then try. And if they try, they may fail. So what? The successful person realizes that temporary failures can provide life's best lessons. Get up and try again. We are goal-oriented creatures. We are designed to accomplish goals. A person without a goal, void of dreams and desires, has entered psychological death. Now, Henry Ward Beecher put it this way: but if a man has come to that point where he is so content that he says, I don't want to know anymore, or do anymore, or be anymore, he is in a state in which he ought to be changed into a mummy, end quote. Continues Beecher, of all hideous things, a mummy is most hideous, and of mummies, the most hideous are those that are running about the streets and talking, end quote. The successful person desires more, even though he realizes that each new goal means a new risk of failure. Well, there are two things that may be said of everyone, whether he will admit the two things or not. One, each of us wants something, and two, each of us is afraid of something. The successful person, unlike the failure, decides that he wants something more than he's afraid of the risk. Do this. Listen carefully. Write on a piece of paper what you want more than anything else. Maybe more money, perhaps you can be even more specific, doubling your income or making a specific amount of money. Or you may want a beautiful home that's completely paid for. You may want recognition or job success. You may want a more harmonious family. Maybe you want to give more to your church or favorite charity. Whatever you write down, make sure it is a specific goal and clearly defined. You needn't show it to anyone, but begin carrying it with you so that you can look at it several times a day. Think about your goal each morning when you get up, and immediately you have something better to work for. Look at your written goal every night before you go to bed, and you have a greater reason to live. In fact, that goal is really yours the moment you write it down and begin to think about it. You are a success by definition because you now have a predetermined goal and are moving progressively toward reaching it. By writing down your goal, you have discovered the first in a list of wealth secrets and are on your way to even greater discoveries. B, thoughts. Let me share with you another wealth secret, and if you understand completely what I'm going to tell you, your life will never be the same. This wealth secret is like a two-edged sword, for in it is both the key to success and the key to failure. Here it is. We become what we think about. Let me repeat that phrase. We become what we think about. When the book The Power of Positive Thinking appeared in the bookstores back in October of 1952, few knew that the author, Norman Vincent Peale, had been a preacher's kid who had struggled with self-doubts and feelings of inadequacy. Along the way, he began realizing the untapped resource inherent in man's thoughts. Who could have predicted back in 1952 that the book would jump to the top of the New York Times bestseller list and would stay there long enough to break the all-time record? The book's popularity was due to its message. Dr. Peale's introduction stated, although too many people are defeated by the everyday problems of life, they go struggling, perhaps even whining through their days with a sense of dull resentment at what they consider the bad breaks life has given them. Continued Peale, in a sense, there may be such a thing as the breaks in this life, but there's also a spirit and method by which we can control and even determine those breaks. Summed into two words, positive thinking. Dr. Peale shared the power available to every person. Dr. Peale may have coined the phrase, but possibility thinkers have existed since the dawn of history, and though the greatest minds have disagreed on many different things, it's primarily on this one point that they've been in complete agreement. King Solomon wrote, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Marcus Aurelius mused, a man's life is what his thoughts make of it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said this, a man is what he thinks about all day long. William James wrote, the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. Let me quote again from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. This is one of the greatest laws in the universe. Fervently do I wish I had discovered it as a very young man. It dawned upon me much later in life, and I found it to be one of the greatest, if not my greatest discovery outside of my relationship to God. And the great law, briefly and simply states, is that if you think in negative terms, you'll get negative results. If you think in positive terms, you will get positive results. That's the simple fact, which is the basis of an astonishing law of prosperity and success. We become what we think about. The person who's thinking about worthwhile, predetermined goals is going to reach them because that's what he's thinking about. On the other hand, that person who has no goal, who doesn't know where he's going, and whose thoughts must therefore be misdirected, will become disjointed.